I'd been waiting 6 long months for my custom medical equipment to finally arrive. 6 months of endless therapy sessions, paperwork battles with insurance, and managing pain that never seemed to fade. So when the delivery company called that morning to confirm they were bringing it today, I could have cried with relief. Finally, after all that waiting, I could start healing properly. I live in Oak Ridge Estates, a quiet, picture-perfect suburban neighborhood where the grass is always trimmed to HOA-approved height and the mailboxes all match. It's peaceful, at least on the surface. But beneath the manicured lawns and white picket fences lies the true ruler of this kingdom, the Homeowners Association, run with military precision by one woman, Karen Wilkins. Karen is in her 50s, always impeccably dressed, her blonde bob never out of place. She walks the neighborhood like she owns it, carrying her clipboard like a badge of authority, her expression perpetually stuck somewhere between disgust and superiority. Around noon, the delivery truck finally pulled up in front of my house. From my living room window, I watched eagerly as the driver stepped out, clipboard in hand, heading for my front door. I moved as quickly as my recovery would allow, ready to greet him, when I suddenly saw her. Karen, marching across my lawn like she was storming a battlefield. Clipboard ready, face set in that familiar scowl of disapproval. "Excuse me," she barked at the delivery driver, her voice sharp enough to slice through glass. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" The driver, a young man, maybe in his 20s, blinked in confusion. Delivering a package to this address," he said, pointing to my house. I hurried outside, careful with each step. "Hi there," I said, forcing a polite smile. "I'm the homeowner. That package is for me." Before I could get another word out, Karen stepped directly between me and the driver. "I'm Karen Wilkins, president of the Oak Ridge Estates Homeowners Association," she announced, pronouncing every syllable like it was a royal decree. "And we have very strict rules about deliveries in this neighborhood." I could already feel my blood pressure spiking. "Karen, this is medical equipment I've been waiting for months to receive," I said, trying to stay calm. "It's approved by my insurance, and I need it for my recovery." She gave me a once-over, her eyes narrowing. "Well," she said, "finally, you should have filed a delivery request form with the HOA board 2 weeks in advance. Section 23, paragraph 4 of the bylaws." She tapped her clipboard like it was a gavel. The driver shifted awkwardly. "Ma'am, I just need someone to sign for it so I can move on," he said carefully. Karen turned toward him, plastering on a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Don't worry, I'll handle this. You can leave it with me as the HOA representative. I'll make sure it's properly processed according to our community guidelines." "Absolutely not," I snapped, stepping forward despite the pain shooting through my leg. "Karen, this is my medical equipment. It's custom-made and costs thousands of dollars. I need it today." She crossed her arms smugly. "Then perhaps you should have followed the rules. They exist for a reason." Her voice was coated with fake sweetness, the kind that barely hid her condescension. The poor driver looked like he wanted to disappear. "I just need a signature from the person at this address," he said again, holding out his tablet. Before I could even reach for it, Karen snatched it from his hands. As the neighborhood representative, she declared, "I'm confiscating this package until the proper paperwork is filed. It'll be held at the community center in the meantime." I stared at her, speechless. "Karen, that's theft. You have no right to take my property." She laughed, a short, dismissive laugh. "It's not theft. It's the enforcement of community standards. You'll get your package once you've completed the necessary forms and paid the rush delivery fee, $200. The delivery driver looked from her to me, clearly unsure what to do. "Ma'am, I can't just give this to someone else," he tried to explain. Karen's tone hardened. "Young man, do you really want me to call your supervisor? I'm sure they'd love to hear how you're disrupting our peaceful community with unauthorized deliveries." That was it. I pulled out my phone. Karen, if you don't step aside right now, I'm calling the police. This is my property, my address, and my delivery. She rolled her eyes. Go ahead. My husband plays golf with the police chief. They understand the importance of maintaining standards. Keeping my eyes on her, I dialed 911. Yes, hello, I said, steadying my voice. I need to report a theft in progress. Someone is trying to take my medical equipment. Karen's face turned red, but unbelievably, she doubled down. While I was still on the phone with dispatch, she somehow convinced the flustered driver to place my package in the back of her oversized SUV parked across the street. To this day, I don't know how she pulled it off, whether it was her overbearing tone or the poor guy's desperation to escape. But by the time I hung up, she was slamming her car door shut, my equipment locked in her trunk. You'll get this back once you've learned to respect the rules, she said smugly before driving off. She called out through her car window as she started the engine. You'll get it back once you learn to follow the rules. I've just described your vehicle to the police, I shouted after her. They're on their way, and this is grand theft. Karen just smiled, gave a smug little wave, and drove off, leaving me standing in my driveway with my phone still in hand, completely stunned by what had just happened. About 20 minutes later, 2 police cruisers pulled up in front of my house. I hurried to meet them, relief mixing with disbelief. I explained everything, how the HOA president had stolen my medical equipment, showing them my order confirmation, delivery tracking, and even the HOA bylaws on my phone to prove there was no such thing as a delivery request form. One of the officers, Detective Rodriguez, according to the badge on his chest, took careful notes, his expression darkening with every detail. So, he asked slowly, she knew it was medical equipment and took it anyway? Yes, I confirmed. She specifically acknowledged it, but said I had to file paperwork with the HOA first. Rodriguez's jaw tightened. The value of this equipment puts it in grand theft territory, he said, glancing toward his partner. And since it's medical, there could be additional charges. He made a quick call to dispatch, instructing nearby units to head to Karen's address immediately. While we waited, I told him more about Karen, how she'd terrorized the entire neighborhood for years with her petty fines, her obsessive rule enforcement, and the way she used the HOA as her personal kingdom. Detective Rodriguez listened intently, jotting things down. People like that, he said finally, shaking his head, get drunk on the tiniest bit of power. But taking someone's medical equipment, that crosses the line from annoying to criminal. About an hour later, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Detective Rodriguez standing there, smiling slightly. Behind him, 2 uniformed officers were unloading my medical equipment from the back of a police cruiser. We recovered your property, he said, stepping aside so they could bring it in. Ms. Wilkins wasn't exactly cooperative, but once we explained the seriousness of the situation, she didn't have much of a choice. I let out a huge sigh of relief as they placed the package inside. Thank you so much, I said. Is she in trouble? Rodriguez's grin widened just a bit. Oh, yes. She's been arrested and is currently being processed downtown. Grand theft of medical equipment is a felony, up to 3 years in state prison and fines reaching $10,000. Her lawyer will probably try to negotiate it down, but she's facing real consequences. As he spoke, my phone buzzed with notifications. Word had already spread through Oak Ridge Estates. The HOA board had called an emergency meeting and was sending out emails about a leadership transition and an unfortunate incident involving our former president. Rodriguez chuckled as I showed him the messages. Looks like her reign of terror is officially over, he said. We'll need you to come down to the station tomorrow to give a formal statement. As he left, he paused on the porch and turned back. You know, he said thoughtfully, we get calls about HOA disputes all the time. Usually it's just civil nonsense we can't do much about. But Ms. Wilkins made a big mistake. She took the law into her own hands. I thanked him again, closing the door behind him. For the first time in months, I felt a genuine sense of calm. I sat beside the neatly packaged equipment, finally home where it belonged. Moments later, my phone rang. It was Ted, my neighbor, and the HOA's vice president. Is it true? He asked without even saying hello. Karen was arrested for stealing your medical equipment? "It's true," I said, still half in disbelief myself. Ted let out a long, low whistle. "Well, the board just voted unanimously to remove her, effective immediately. We also fined her the maximum amount allowed under our bylaws, $5,000. I was about to reply when I heard a commotion outside. Peering through my window, I saw a familiar car pulling up. It was Karen's husband dropping her off at home. She had clearly been released on bail, but she looked nothing like the immaculately composed HOA queen I'd known. Her perfectly styled bob was a mess, her makeup streaked, her designer clothes replaced with rumpled sweats. Our eyes met through the window, and for a few seconds, the world seemed to stop. The shock, the humiliation, the realization of what she'd done, it was all written across her face. Her mouth opened and closed like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. Then she turned away, hurrying inside her house as curious neighbors peeked from behind curtains and conveniently decided to check their mail or water their lawns. Word spread fast, and before long everyone knew the full story. In the weeks that followed, Karen's case went to court. The judge didn't seem moved by her excuses. When the verdict was read, she was sentenced to 18 months of probation, fined $7,000, and ordered to complete 200 hours of community service at a medical equipment distribution center for low-income patients. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. When she heard her sentence, Karen's perfect facade finally cracked. Her face crumpled and she let out a wail that echoed through the courtroom. "But I was just enforcing the rules," she cried, mascara streaking down her cheeks. The judge didn't even look up as he moved on to the next case, leaving Karen to face the consequences she'd spent years avoiding. For the first time, Oak Ridge Estates felt peaceful again, and as I sat in my living room, adjusting the very equipment she'd tried to steal, I couldn't help but smile, because for once, the rules had finally worked against the person who thought she was above them all.